Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Coram and Justin Nielsen here with a look at the action in today's session, where we saw an impressive shakeoff of weakness on the heels of news of war in the Middle East, Justin.
Yeah, so I mean, first we shook off the jobs report that started things a little bit negative on Friday. And then, of course, Hamas attacked Israel over the weekend. And, that was something that was definitely affecting futures as soon as they opened on Sunday. But we had a really rough start to the day, and here we are ending the day positive. So we'll definitely get into that, as well as a few stocks that were moving. Some of this as a result. We'll look at a defense stock, including AeroVironment, also an oil related stock, Weatherford, and finally in the data center space, Vertiv.
All right, a nice assortment there. We'll take a look at those
a little bit of everything.
Stocks. Yeah, but first, let's take a look at the major indexes. The Nasdaq today reversing higher by 0.4%. The Dow up 0.6% today. Same for the S&P 500 and the Russell 2000, finishing with a gain of 0.5%. So a nice upside reversal and a follow up to the follow through on Friday. Maybe, it wasn't another 1% up day, but if you're talking about the swing intraday, Justin, and the fact that we were able to shake off this news, that does seem impressive.
Yeah, it really does. And it is a step in the right direction. Of course, I think we're all at a point where we want to see a little bit more proof in this pudding, but it's a step in the right direction. And again, I think it does show a little bit of resilience that it was able to shake this off. Some pretty bad news that was coming and potentially hitting the market. Now, of course, one of the things that, because this is Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day, we did have the bond market closed, banks are closed, so there wasn't really I even left off the 10-year Treasury yield today because look, with bonds closed, there's not much to look at here.
Yeah.
But that's been something that's been weighing a lot on the market. That wasn't something that was an effect today. But, if you looked at, some of the ETFs, you could see movement there kind of, in expectations of what might happen.
Right.
Still, I think overall, the takeaway here is that the NASDAQ was able to follow up on some gains. The S&P 500 was able to make some progress, get, to its 21-day moving average line. I don't know quite if it, ticked above that 21-day moving average line, but it looks awfully close. So, things are going in the right direction, because one of the main things we need is traction.
Right.
In the stocks that we choose. And I think that you did see in a number of spaces that were strong on Friday, a little bit of follow-up action. I'm sure, a lot of people were looking at the cybersecurity space, and that was an area that continued to move higher. A few of the big mega caps, those were following up nicely, as well as some of these that were affected by the attacks here, including the defense and oil stocks.
Yeah, so we'll be taking a look at some of those. So you're exactly right. That other key ingredient, Justin, in addition to a follow-up on the index level, is, are there stocks to buy and are they following through? And it seems like, even though we've seen really weak market breadth, does it seem like there are things in the cupboards, so to speak, to buy?
Yeah, and that was one of the things on Friday. There was stuff, especially in that cybersecurity space. A lot of reversals in the energy space actually started on Friday. So the additional strength today just kind of gave you some more breaks of downtrends. So there was some stuff out there, and in defense. Look, defense has been really clobbered. If we just look at ITA real quick, I'm going out of order here a little bit, but the defense ETF, this has been in a major downtrend. Boeing and Lockheed Martin and all of those, really putting a lot of pressure on this one. But you had a whole host of other stocks that, are above their 50-day moving average lines. And I think that's what we're really focused on, here at Investors Business Daily, because we're always looking at where is the strength.
Yes.
And that's where you don't have to regulate yourself to an ETF that is really downtrodden if there's a whole host of stocks in there that are showing a lot of strength.
Well said, Justin. And just to tie a bow on the index section of our programming, here's a look at the Dow. It's still below its 200-day line, but also reversing higher today. RUS, this is the Russell 2000. It's really been beaten down, trying to put together a string of some gains here too. And Justin, I know something else that you're looking for is if we can see follow through days on these other indexes. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, they don't have to happen on the same day, but usually the most powerful rallies have multiple indexes having follow through days, sometimes on the same day, but within days of each other. And on the IBD Live show this morning, we kind of talked about just looking at the COVID rally that happened in April of
Right.
2020. You had the S&P 500, the first one that had its rally attempt with the follow through day on April 2nd, and the NASDAQ was right behind it on April 6th. And of course, one of the big things in that, surprisingly to a lot of us, was that there were a lot of stocks that were setting up. NVIDIA, Adobe, Microsoft, I mean, the list goes on. They were forming these nice patterns at that time. So there was plenty to buy from. And that's the ideal situation.
I'm gonna reset to today. Okay, let's go through a couple of other ETFs before we get to those individual stocks. Let me just underscoring the strength in energy today. There was a whole host of energy related names on the move here today. XLE rebounding off of the 200-day line, up 3.4% in volume. But it wasn't just that, Justin. It was other pockets within, because we know XLE heavily weighted to Chevron and Exxon. But it was a pretty broad-based rally in the sector today.
You knew exactly where I was going, Ali, because yeah, XLE, you always have to be a little suspicious there because of that heavy weight of Exxon and Chevron. But again, you saw that in some of the broader based XOP, OIH, that's the explorers and producers, as well as the field services. So any way you sliced it, there was, strength in that sector.
Yeah, and looking at the underlying commodity, because we know that's the big reason for these stocks moving up and down, is what is the price of oil doing? And we know after a really strong multi-month move that had come off pretty dramatically over the last week or so. So seeing a strong rebound there today.
Yeah. And just so folks know, especially if you're a MarketSmith subscriber, one of the things that we really like to show folks on a day like today where you're looking for where the strength is you can always go down to our reports section. And under the reports section, we have this daily percentage change for the industry group. So you can see what is kind of leading or lagging on any given day. And if you do a sort of the price percent change, which Ali's already done, you can see oil and gas there at the top. Not just the explorers and producers, but the drillers a little bit further down, the field services, the U.S. explorers and producers, integrated machinery equipment, Royal Trust. I mean, it just goes on and on. Transport pipeline. That's where a lot of strength was today. So no surprise that of the 11 sector spider ETFs, XLE was, the top dog.
So then with that knowledge, it seems like, okay, that's what's moving. Then the next step for active traders looking to pick winners in the group is to drill down and see, okay, which stocks are maybe rebounding or clearing downtrends within the context of an uptrend, showing that strength, right, Justin? Not just bouncing today after getting clobbered.
Exactly, and that's where sometimes you can kind of get yourself to the strongest stocks within those sectors, and that's kind of the sweet spot that we look for. Because remember, the ETFs are going to be dragged down, as we showed with the defense ETF. They're going to be dragged down by some of those laggards, and why not shed the laggards and stick with the leaders if at all possible.
Okay. Yeah. So we will be taking a look at an oil and gas name here soon. But last but not least, in our sector ETF section, we want to take a look at XLC with a notable gain today, up 1.1%.
Yeah. So again, a lot of the strength has started here with the NASDAQ. Even though the S&P 500 was stronger today, again, a lot of that having to do with the oil and gas, helping that out. But, XLC is now above its 50-day moving average line. And when you think about it, it makes sense because it's important to kind of know what the underlying is of these ETFs. You already mentioned the heavy weight that XLE has in Exxon Mobil and Chevron. Well, for XLC, the heavyweights are Meta Platforms and Alphabet. Those two together are the ExxonMobil and Chevron of XLC. They basically take up about 50% of that ETF. So when you're looking at the Magnificent Seven right now, Alphabet and Meta really kind of distinguish themselves as the leaders. Both of those are above their 50-day moving average lines. And so it's no surprise that XLC is kind of one of the first ones out of the gate back above its 50-day moving average line, even ahead of the NASDAQ composite itself.
Yeah. It's always good to check these sector ETFs and kind of see what's going on and then drill down from there and do further research. Now let's take a look at AVAV. This is in the aerospace defense group. And of course, this area of the market definitely in focus today, given those headlines that broke over the weekend, Justin.
Yeah, so you can see a lot of volume in this reversal today. It had that nice spike, a big gap up, and you filled in a good portion of that gap from the earnings. But it looks like the volume was relatively tame compared to that big heavy volume on the earnings. You actually did have some pretty heavy volume on the upside during that, and now you've got this reversal right there. I mean, if you go to the weekly chart, you can kind of see it was really kind of right there at the 10-week moving average line. And there was a resistance at first to going down. You see that tight area that it formed immediately after the gap up. It really kind of held in tight, really trying to hold on to those gains, and it only really gave up half the gains of the gap up. And so now we're kind of at this level where it's gotten support, and the line that you drew is perfect because you can see that multiple times at this level, it's kind of, hit its head there. And a lot of times former areas of resistance become areas of support. And that's exactly what happened. So you had a support level kind of, merge together at that 10-week moving average line and that long-term area of resistance.
Good stuff there, Justin. Next on our list, let's take a look at VRT Vertiv. This was today's stock of the day, reversing higher. So closing with a gain. A lot of stocks that we saw today were weak early, then managed to shake that off along with the broad market. Now on Friday, the stock did look like it cleared an early entry within this base, Justin. And if we go to the weekly chart, we can see it's on the verge of a breakout with an RS line blue dot.
Yeah, that RS line blue dot is a great way to find stocks when there's corrections going on. And we just got out of a market in correction. And this is one of our go-to things that we look at, because what it's showing is here are stocks that are basing, but their relative strength lines are at new highs. And that can be a very powerful combination because it's showing you these are the ones that are trying to resist the downtrend. And so Vertiv, I mean, look, this is already, and this might scare some people, but this already doubled in, just a few months here. So a lot of people might be looking at this and say, well, gosh, isn't the move over? But a lot of times these stocks that double can go on to double again. And you got to also look at what is going on in the space. You think electrical power equipment, how is that exciting? But really what's happening here is it's all about the digital infrastructure technology and data centers. Data centers is big right now. I was talking with my brother-in-law who's in real estate, and he's like, yeah, commercial. I mean, there's all these, problems with commercial, but data centers and medical, those are doing just fine. And so it just reminded me of Vertiv because this is more of a picks and shovels play. They're doing kind of the maintenance part and getting the data center, all of those things that you need for, cooling down those data centers and everything like that. So a real picks and shovels play here, and data centers are going to be so important if AI is going to be that next big technology. So Vertiv stands to potentially benefit from that.
Great explanation there, Justin. Now let's take a look at WFRD. This is Weatherford in the oil and gas machinery equipment group, ranked 3 out of 197. A nice pop today of 5%. Had some volume behind the move. What an orderly pullback for this stock, Justin, after a strong move in June and July and August. And when we saw last week, the price of oil taking a big hit, this one, even though it declined, it was a very orderly pullback here.
Yeah. And even before that decline, it had a lot of volume on the upside there as it was, getting that support at the 21-day moving average line. And so, look, it's never fun to be taking a hit like that. I mean, that was basically a 10% or more hit that it took and got it back below that 50-day moving average line. But today's action, and remember, this started on Friday for oil and gas. It wasn't just because of what happened in the Middle East.
Right.
It really started on Friday, a nice reversal, and then today it kind of confirmed that. And so it would have been maybe a little tough to do it on Friday because you were still below the 50-day moving average line. But I think today, the strength it was showing. Now, we did put this on Swing Trader, and what I'm looking at is I don't want to see this gap get filled. It's okay if you're holding on to a stock and it happens, but for swing trading purposes, we really don't want to see that gap get filled. We want to see it continue higher from here after breaking that downtrend. So that's what I'm looking at. We could use the 50-day moving average line. Not much risk there. You're only looking at a couple percentage points to the 50-day moving average line, or maybe 3% if you go to the high of Friday. So not too much. But both with this and Vertiv, you have to remember we've got earnings season right around that corner. And so in a few weeks, both Vertiv and Weatherford are going to be reporting earnings. So that's just something to know. What we're looking for is trying to get some traction on these, some cushion, maybe ahead of that. For swing trading purposes, we're not going to hold through earnings, but for position trading, getting that cushion ahead of time is great and allows you to hold through earnings potentially.
Yes. Well said there, Justin. Thank you so much for that. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. That's it for today, but we will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live, and we hope you join us, investors.com/IBD Live, for all the details on that. We'll see you there, and we'll also see you right back here tomorrow at the close.